Hello YouTube and newsletter subscribers, this is Terrell from Terrell3.com. Today's May 5th, 2016. This is the Black Star Update Report connected to Volume 18 of Terrell's 2016 newsletter. And when we look at the year over year, then 2016 is looking a lot like 2014, where we had a lot of seismic activity. You notice the values just a little bit lower and higher than last year. I mean, week 12 was a pronounced lull. And just before our near side alignment quake event last year. And the prediction is, well, we're seeing the lull. This one right here was unexpected quake. We're supposed to have that in week 13. Looking for more of that to come. If we look at what's happened for the last couple of years, let me see here. Got that pulled up. Volume 12 here in 2000. This is 2014 we're looking at. So when you go to the newsletter, let me just switch back there real quickly. When you go to the newsletter and go down to the chart, when you click on this final seismic chart, 2014 and 2015, that's what you're seeing right here. So I like to go back to 2014. This is the week 12 values. You see how they're kind of small for 2014. And then right after that, we have all this big activity shaking out. We were down to 31 of the 5 magnitude earthquakes. And then we jumped up to 57, down a little bit, 37, and then back up to 56 for weeks 13 through 15. This is the highly active part that we're looking for. 2016, similarly, then you're seeing a well-pronounced lull right here. No 6s at all, and only 13 5s. That is an extreme low value. It's pretty easy to predict the lull for week 12. And then this 3-week period was not nearly as active as in 2014, but we did get our near side alignment quake event. I'm expecting that this year. It could happen anytime, and it should happen over the weekend. We're going to see a 7 magnitude earthquake. Should be Pacific Ocean Ring of Fire. And just looking at Earthquake 3D, if you want to do that for a second here, then look at the patterns. Look at it for the last week. Here's our 7 magnitude earthquake. It came a little bit early, but this is where the pressure begins with each cycle, and then the pressure shift this way around the north and this way around the south. I was expecting, even before now, you see how this area is filling in between Australia and South America. This is typical. This is what's supposed to happen. What I'm expecting is, look at the depth of these earthquakes. The depths over here, they're just not as numerous. 542 going to the end of the last cycle, the last uptick period. That ended November 24th, 2015. We saw a lot of deep earthquakes through here. They jumped over to this side. We had the pair of Peruvian quakes, if you remember, backside alignment November 24th. And I'm just not seeing the depths that I was expecting to see here, but this activity did shift north. That's what we're expecting. The convergence area is right through here. You notice there's a few earthquakes in there that are a little deeper, and 38 kilometers deep right here. That is pretty deep. That is real deep compared to what we're seeing 2 years ago. We're seeing them in the mid-20s last week. Now we're getting one down into 38. That could be a sign of what's to come. And if you look carefully, you'll see, well, what was a Baja California quake swarm area has shifted far north into Canada. And it's pointing at the Alaska quake swarm area to the south, to the north, and it's pointing to this. And it's trying to develop a new off Guerrero, where we had the 2012 event. These areas we should expect to intensify, and then eventually we're going to see how far north this southern magma wave runs. And there's a pattern that I wanted to show you. It is highlighted in the newsletter here, and not on this page. Let's get back over to the newsletter. Something I want to show you. Volcanism. We had 5 new volcanic eruptions, and I put for week 12 last year, the 4 that we had. So we're looking at a similar pattern. Remember, we had 9 new volcanic eruptions last week. We're looking for a lull, a mini lull, and that's what we're getting. 5 still on the high end of the scale. because we're in the Earth change uptick period. So this is pretty much what we expect, but the pattern is what I wanted to show you. See, we were in Indonesia last year, Indonesia this year. We're in Russia, we're in Russia. Last year we were down in Ecuador and Chile. That's further south from where we have the activity this year, Costa Rica and Guatemala. See, that's the pressure relief mechanisms kicking off, and they're a little further north than they were last year for week 12. So I'm watching to see how far into Mexico this magma wave makes it for this uptick period. So we've got week 13, 14, and 15 coming up. 3 solid weeks of Earth at the peak of the Earth change uptick. So we're going to see if we get into, if these get over into Alaska more with the pressure shifting this way. It should move in to Alaska. We should see more evidence of volcanism over this way. And coming up from the south. Last year it was focused down in here. Now it's focused up in here. So it's shifted north. We're watching for the new volcanic eruptions to show up next week or the next week or the next week, and we should be seeing Mexico in here, and we should see Alaska, because what's happening is that pressure is shifting from over here towards the Americas, around the north, through Kamchatka, through the Aleutian quake swarm area and Alaskan quake swarm area, and around the south. We see evidence of it right here. We see the volcanism that's happening along in here. I'm expecting earthquake events. I mean, this is a pretty sizable earthquake event. What are we looking at here? This is a 6.7. I mean, that's real darn sizable, and it's right in our area that we're looking for. Watch for volcanism. Let's look at the depth again. Oh, that's only 10 kilometers deep. It's not deep enough. But whenever this gets beyond, say, 60 kilometers, this one here is, we have one here at 63. So watch for increased volcanism through this area and moving north into Mexico. Pressure's built into Mexico and into Alaska first before it can begin to converge on the California quake swarm area. These, I mean, a couple of years ago, they were all flat. Now we're seeing some that are getting deeper and deeper, but nothing dramatic yet. There's a article in here. It's pretty high. I'll get into that magnetic pole migration stuff here in a second. There's an article down here. Scientists say Craton Edge earthquakes caused by new upwelling magma from the asthenosphere. Okay, and here's what this is what he's showing. These are precursor quakes for what's coming. Everything that I just told you. Pressure's building from the north, pressure's building from the south. This is the convergence zone. That's already affecting Yellowstone. And you're noticing there's lots of earthquakes that are not being reported. They're turning off our ability to watch the magma flow going into Yellowstone. I know that they're very, very concerned about this. My theory, my explanation for what's going on here, see this new line of quakes right here? This was a California quake swarm. It was a Baja California quake swarm area. This new line of quakes that's coming is from Texas through Seattle, pointing at Cascadia. Out here is where we're going to have our linchpin quake event. So this is shaping up for this exact scenario that I predicted in advance a couple of years ago. This is shaping up. We're getting towards the end of the Earth change uptick period, so you're seeing more pronounced signs. This has caused the North American craton runs up like this. These plates are pressed against it. Solomon Island, February 6, 2013, happened. Cracked the tectonic plate in two. That created extra space in the Pacific Ocean Ring of Fire, tectonic dynamic. And then these plates, ever so gradually, ever so softly, they are cascading away from the North American craton. That creates opportunity for the slippage that we're seeing between these, along these fault lines where these plates have been pressed together. That's also creating opportunity for the magma to push up in between. And that's what the scientists are talking about. Dutch Sense has this part of his commentary just a little bit off, but it's the separation of the plates that creates opportunity. Pressure pushing the plates together is going to limit the amount of movement. This is increased movement. This is a new line. A couple of years ago, we didn't see this. Only after 2013, Solomon Island, did we start seeing this. Something that happened halfway around the world, created a domino effect. The dominoes are falling. They're falling with greater speed and velocity during the uptick periods. That's what we're seeing right now. They relax somewhat during the lull periods. That will begin after May the 20th once we cross the black star orbit path. Very good article here. So he's trying to show this movement. It's exactly the opposite. Everything is wanting to shift away towards Solomon Island. That's the way that I see it. That's why I see things happening. The Oklahoma quake swarm area is caused by this foot formation, pressure on the foot formation here. And then now we're seeing, like you saw up here, this pressure moving straight across the United States. It's almost a straight line, like this, pointing towards New Madrid. So I see New Madrid kicking off, but not till after Yellowstone, until after this scenario. These precursor quakes are indicators of what's coming, but we have an event out here, just about where this earthquake took place here. We're going to have a Cascadia subduction zone linchpin quake event. That's what I expect to happen as this magma wave pushes far enough south for the pressure shift to come through Cascadia, which has been locked for a very, very long time. When that changes, then we'll see the deeper quakes moving south and come into this proliferating California quake swarm area. And the same thing is happening from the south as it's coming up. This is the convergence zone right here. We are seeing a convergence of the pressures coming from the north and the south, creating what's going on here. These are precursor quakes for what's coming next. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen on this earth change uptick period. We have 3 weeks left. But we're getting to the end, and if there's signs of stress, then it's going to show up just like this. Doesn't mean a big event's going to happen on this cycle. It may not even happen this year. It could wait till next year. This time next year, as we're coming up to the May 20th geological pole shift date. That's the way things look right now. So I'm still watching. I'm looking for my May 7th alignment event. That's when we pass between the two stars. Let me go over to Earthquake 3D. That's when we pass between the two stars like we did last year on April the 25th, 2015. Keep going back in time. We have our alignment quake events all the way back to whenever the Earth was passing between the Sun and Leo, back when we had Fukushima. The black star was in this area. We had Chile. The black star was in this area. It's been moving across just below the ecliptic plane. It's been moving across, and we've been tracking it all the way now into the Libra constellation. So I have this date on May the 7th. This is about the time we're going to have the alignment, and we've got Mercury playing a role, the Moon playing a role, the Earth playing a role, and the black star playing a role. That's out here. Mars wants to. It's just a little too far left. We already had the Martian dust storms predicted in advance. We've already had the magnetosphere wanting to turn around. They called it a collapse. They only gave us 2 hours of the feed, the keyframe data, to be able to see what was happening. It looked like Earth magnetosphere was trying to turn around, but now again, just like happens every year, we have missing data. It happened a little bit earlier than I thought it should, and if we do not get this event, I can already see how another model could come into play. That recent flurry of earthquakes that we had, we may just come down into a lull. We may come down into the earth change lull period. That's not expected until after May the 20th. That is possible. If it does, that means that the black star is on a different course than what I thought. It's an inferior model. I've had it running before, and it did not play out. But what it means is the black star is coming in, and it's not actually coming around the sun. It's going to orbit a third point in space, and that it's actually going to come around this way. That means that as the Earth comes around, our nearest point is going to be sometime in the winter, before May the 20th, 2017. So that's a possibility. The way that I'm looking at it now, where I'm expecting this lull for week 12, we got the lull now, but when I look into week 13, remember week 13 ends this Saturday, and here we are on Thursday. So when I go look at Earthquake 3D and I look at the number of sixes, I should have 5 or 6 sixes on this bad boy. And you know, there is some activity here, but whenever the feel that I'm getting here, you know, there's a 6 right there. There's a 6.9 over here. I mean, this is kind of the pattern that we're supposed to be looking at. Lots and lots of extra activity out here that we didn't see on previous cycles too. So we'll just see how it goes. And we have a 3 and a 3.5 on the eastern side of the Oklahoma quake swarm area. Lots and lots of earthquakes, showing signs of lots and lots of pressure there. These three stacks of flags are really stacking up. It's during the uptick period, so we're supposed to. And we should see activity along the mid-Atlantic ridge, which we do. That could fill in. This pressure should be coming across to the Rock of Gibraltar, and then we should see a new quake swarm area form right here in the next 3 weeks. We should see some activity in Gibraltar, and it really depends on this near side alignment quake event. Last time happened right here, so that gave the opportunity for this line of activity coming across to Gibraltar. It's real possible it's just going to be another Pacific Ocean Ring of Fire event that's not going to send the pressures that way on this time, on this cycle. But that's what's happened at the end, near the end of the last two earth change uptick periods, is we saw activity coming straight across, then to Gibraltar, and then a new swarm forming along the mid-Atlantic ridge, pointing towards this quake swarm area right here, which I call the Jamaica quake swarm area. Much more proliferation down into here. And this is a real strong indicator that my hypothesis is correct, that this magma wave, I'm calling it, magma wave, it's caused by deeper earthquakes, rising magma plumes. It displaces the heavier magma that's on top as this glassy type magma comes up from deep in the transition zone, 600 kilometers deep. So we're going to watch for signs that we're getting more and more deep and deep earthquakes down here, and then watch for that pressure to continue to shift north. So each time, at the end of each of these uptick periods, this pressure shifts closer and closer to the California quake swarm area that is getting wider and wider and wider. It's a pattern. We need to be watchful, because it's at the end of one of these earth change uptick periods that we're going to get a change in this pattern that's out here. And it could happen at any time now in the next 3 weeks. Once we get past May the 20th, I would not expect this type of activity that I'm talking about right now that could happen in the next 3 weeks. If we get into week 16, we'll be in the lull period, Earth core is cooling down, because we will be moving beyond where the black star is. See, if this is our alignment, that places the black star right here. So we're moving closer to it as we're moving towards this way, the way that we have been. That's why we've had the uptick period. But then we're going to start moving away from the black star. And remember, because of the magnetic repulsion between the two stars, the black star is actually slowing down as it's reaching perihelion, which sounds backwards, doesn't it? But that's what's happening. Now, am I looking at the black star slowing down as it's coming in from its aphelion position, and then as it comes around the sun, the gravitational effect and the magnetic effect are going to give it kind of a circular orbit, which sounds crazy too. I know it sounds crazy. But does that mean that the black star is going to reach this magical velocity because of the opposing forces? Does that mean that my May 7th date's going to be off a little bit? Michelle sent me a little bit of information and a question. The the anomalies that I saw on the chart for 2013 and 2014, I couldn't tell what was a near-side alignment quake event. There were so many. That appears to be the time when the black star was transitioning from this inbound orbit to this circular orbit. And that could be the reason why. And now it's going to want to take, as the black star gets closer to the sun, its magnetic polarity strength potential increases by the cube of the closing distance. So that magnetism, that repulsion power, gets to be very strong. And is that going to slow the black star down even more as it's getting closer and closer? And is that why the I'm going to jump back up there to my report, because I want to show you the magnetic pole migration. Is that why the magnetic, look how wide the magnetic pole of a turn that it's taking compared to last year. And if you look at for the last 3 years, you'll see the same thing happen from the transition from 2013 to 2014. If you go back up here at the top, you'll see it happen just before February the 2nd. And whenever we go for this year, we go back, we'll see it happen just before February the 2nd also. So there's a pattern here. So these 2 years for 2014 and 15 ran almost the same course. And look, you see up here, 2014 started off on the same course as 2013, but right after February, just before February the 2nd, transition from January to February, it started taking this really, really wide loop. Then for 2015, it followed almost the same path, just a little wider. It actually crossed up here at the top, but then we see this really, really wide move that it's taking now. So there is a pattern. What's happening now is kind of like what's happening in the transition from 2013 to 2014. The seismic data is similar to 2014. What we're seeing right now, that was the most highly active seismic year. 2015 wasn't as high as 2014. So does this mean that 2016 is going to be a big seismic year? The magnetic pole migration pattern seems to be pointing in that direction. Then I'm running out of time. It's getting later. Still have a lot to do. So I'm going to have to make this report just a little bit shorter. Project supporters for this week include Rose and Linda and Mary. The ladies are supporting the research for this week, but they joined Bradley and Alan, who renewed their subscriptions from previous years. You notice that that only 2 renewals over the last 5 years. The month of May begins the lull period in project support. January, February, and April, those have been our earth change uptick periods for the last 5 years. Remember, everything's transitioning later and later, so we have been typically in a lull period by the time we get in here into May. When the lull period comes, support goes down. You can watch the support for the research as the uptick period. You can watch it. And whenever we go into this lull and we go into the summer, project support really, really low. So that's kind of the pattern. But Rose, Linda, and Mary, thank you, ladies, very, very much for supporting the research this week, and to Bradley and Alan. And then Randy and Mike made another donation to the research. And you don't see this very often, but I would like to send out a prayer request for Mike. That's Randy's husband. And they've been project supporters here for a while, super subscribers, and they make lots of donations to the research. Very, very good people. They're the ones that sent me the picture of the quail and gravy. They go fishing a lot, catch a lot of redfish and stuff. They shoot their rifles. Very, very admirable, I mean, role model type couple for survivalists, if you ask me. And Mike was taken to the hospital. He had this infection that's spreading across his face, making his face turn blue and stuff like that. And the doctor's a little mystified. I haven't got a update report on what's going on with Mike, but I hope that you guys will pray for him, and that I certainly am. And I hope that he's really, really well, really, really soon. Then lots and lots of good information in here. The more important stuff towards the top, and the Ecuador quake, a test for Yellowstone. There's some information here that I think that everybody should read. It's coming from the Russians, and they're saying that the eruption of Yellowstone could be the result of an outside electromagnetic influence. And of course I agree with that. That goes along right with the Grim report issued by the Russians. Just Google Grim report, came out in 2014. They're talking about the magnetic anomalies that's taking place over the United States. They see the seismic, the volcanic pressure shifts going from Indonesia through Russia over to the Americas. They see kind of like what I see, but I wanted to put that right at the top so you guys can check it out. I haven't drawn conclusions exactly, but you know my feeling, if you've been following my reports, that the electromagnetic influence is actually coming from the sun, but it's being redirected through the black star. It's siphoning electromagnetism from the sun, causing the shrinking heliosphere, causing the sun to go to sleep during solar maximum. But then it's redirecting that through a secondary set of magnetic portal connections. So there's the same amount of electromagnetism as we have at solar maximum, even though the sun looks like it's trying to go to sleep. And it's the secondary source is from the sun redirected through the black star. That's going to be the answer of what it is. You're going to see, and you've already seen, the Martian dust storms like I mentioned, and you're going to see the commentary including interplanetary shock waves. That's a fancy word for, in my view, for the ionic clouds that are created by the convergence of the magnetic portal connections. So I can show you on Solar System Scope again. Some of you guys are kind of new. Then as the Earth is passing between the sun and black star, the black star is in Libra, it's right about here. So as the Earth is coming through, it is pulling a magnetic portal connection from the Earth to the sun and the black star to the Earth. And they create a triangle, a big triangle at outside orbit position. They're nowhere close to one another. But as we pass between the two stars, these two magnetic portal connections are being pulled through the primary sun-black star connection. And as these portal connections get closer and closer, you get that sprite formation, portal-to-portal cross-firing. It creates highly charged ionic clouds. That's what caused the dust storms on Mars, and that's what caused our Earth magnetosphere to seem to collapse. It didn't collapse. We had those ionic clouds pushing through with the converging magnetic portal connections. And the dust clouds and the reversing magnetosphere happened at the same time, just like in 2012. And this has been happening every cycle, but NASA is scrubbing the data from the servers. And we only got 2 hours of the data this year. We got all the data recollected in 2012. That information's in the Dropbox folder, the ISWA download. And you can get more information on that just by Googling magnetopause reversal 2012. I connected that with the Martian dust storm. Mars was in a similar position in 2012, being behind us, between the black star. We had the mystery dust storm at the same time. This time there are many more dust storms than there were in 2012, telling me the black star is in near proximity to Mars. Pretty darn close to where Mars is. Even though it seems impossible that a star could be there, remember it's only 3 to 5 kilometers in diameter. It is encased inside of an event horizon. Things on the outside of the event horizon. This thing's more like a black hole than it is a celestial object. It does not have the wide U-shaped gravity well like our sun that gives it a long reach. It has a very short reach because of the event horizon. So just like a black hole, things on the outside of the event horizon not affected very much. Things on the inside fall in. But this event horizon is encasing an object that is likely only 3 to 5 kilometers in diameter. Something is very small, but extremely heavy. Extremely heavy. That creates a deep gravity well, V-shape. Instead of going down to a singularity like a black hole, then it's narrowing down to this very small object. That's why we can't see it. Microlensing is perfected and super cold, and even though it's right next to us, we cannot see the thing. There are no images of the black star to my knowledge. You can't photograph what gobbles up light across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. It's impossible. There's nothing to reflect. Gravitational lensing forces us to see the stars that are in the distance. So this thing, if you're a Trekkie fan, Star Trek, this thing is coming in with a cloaking device. We cannot see it, but we can track it from the magnetic anomalies that it's creating and by the gravitational effect on alignments. And these strange anomalies that are happening, Jupiter's liquefying core, that is because of an extra source of electromagnetism. It's because the black stars are redirecting solar electromagnetism through the Jupiter black star magnetic portal connection. So as Jupiter is in close proximity to the black star, it's receiving high doses of electromagnetism too. Same thing. That's happening to the Earth. As it's getting hotter and hotter, Jupiter's getting hotter and hotter. Its cores, its ethanes, methanes are changing from solid directly to gas. That's changing the complexion. That's why you cannot see the big red spot anymore. So there's lots of evidence that we have an interloper in the inner solar system, just not what you would typically think, as in planets flying crazy and things like that. This guy is coming in like a thief in the night, and it's going to fulfill Scripture. 1 Thessalonians 5, start at verse 1. Read just 5 verses of the Bible. 1 Thessalonians 5, it's going to talk about how the day of the Lord begins, and how it comes like a thief in the night, and how destruction comes suddenly. The sudden destruction part happens in the springtime because we have a sign, even from Scripture, that says the sun's going to turn dark. Matthew 24, verse 29, quoting Joel 2. The sun's going to turn black as sackcloth. Problem is, in the springtime, it affects Earth before it gets close enough to the sun to turn the sun dark. We have no signs. It comes like a thief in the night. At the end of the age, when you read Jesus Christ's predictions for what happens, he's going to describe the earthquakes, the volcanism, the tsunamis, and the things that we're seeing right now. The signs in the heavens, he's describing them. But it's a fall time crossing event after the sun turns black. The sun lights back up again. And then the Earth is in the wrong place at the wrong time in the fall. That's the difference. We're going to have a springtime crossing event. This time, a fall crossing event happens in about 3,600 years. So if you're trying to reconcile Scripture, that's the answer. Paul is the only one that knows how the day of the Lord begins. All the other prophets know how it ends. If you mix those things together, then it's hard to tell the difference. Interpreting Scripture and the science properly gives you the same answer to what's going on here. So I've run about 30 minutes, and that's where I'm about to stop to have enough time to upload and to do all the things that I have to do. See if I can get back here. But before I go, I want to, here's the U.S. major screw-up. Major 7.9 and 7.2 earthquake not reported. That's what I'm saying. The USGS, it's like NASA, Jet Propulsion Laboratory. They're hiding things so that we can't see what's going on. Then David's question about the U.S. West Coast. This was the featured article, but these things up here, I mean, they look kind of small. But did Tesla get it right about Nibiru? Astronomer reveals incoming astrological mass. Could be Nibiru. So these are little things that I think might help people to wake up. And then we'll get to David's question about a West Coast event. What's going on there. Then there's Dutch census stuff. Is information. I'm going to disagree with it a little bit, but there's still a lot of good information, a lot of good data in here. And then more information on the New Madrid seismic, the fault seismic zone. And here's an article that includes the Scallion map of the future. This is the way I see things. See what's going to happen out west? I keep talking about the convergence, the proliferating earthquakes, that line of earthquakes coming across. This is what happens. Eventually, if you're living out in this area, there is no safe zone west of the Rocky Mountain Ridge. There is no safe zone east of the Mississippi River Basin. This is where your safe zone is. There's thousands and thousands of caverns that are right here near the new coast. But you're over 1,000 feet you're over 1,000 feet above sea level here. So my safe zone area is in here. You just don't have the cavern formations and other things out here that you need. The remote location, the springs, all the wood and resources, the animals that are going to use the caverns like we do to survive when magnetosphere wants to weaken and collapse, and things like that. If you're stuck on this side when this happens, the New Madrid goes off, caterpillar crawl, liquefaction. If you're caught on the East Coast, 200 nuclear power plants, where are you going to hide? You need to be downwind. You need to be further south. You need to be on the North American Craton, up in this area. The western part of the United States, the eastern part of the United States, you're done. The people that are in the know, even people from Europe, people from around the world, if you listen to John Moore, he's telling you the truth about this part, the Ozarks. This is centrally located in the United States. If you have a survival group that expands like I do, members in New York, members in California, members in Arizona, this is a central location for everybody to meet up right here. So what I've done is gone to my safe zone location in combination with the near side alignment quake events and war game and practice. And then when the event does happen, it's scheduled right now for May 20th, 2017. And we're going to have plenty of data between now and then to know if that's true. So just keep following the information, and I'm going to try to tell you how to be in the right place at the right time. Subscribe to my newsletters. Let's have some correspondence, and when you get ready to join a survival group, then I'll put you in the right direction so that you can be in the right place at the right time. Very key. 3 parts to the survival strategy: threat assessment, contingency planning, and execution of that plan on time. Any one of those 3 legs are gone and your tripod tips over. It's the same with any military op in the world. Then lots and lots of, we have a G2 storm that kicked off at the beginning of May. I'm looking for X-class flares. May not get it. It doesn't always happen. It could just be that the magnetic portal connections converging when we got the G2 storm. Depends on how these magnetic portal connections come together, and it's dynamic and it's not predictable. But if we don't have one before, we should have a series of X-class flares afterwards. They've come as late as a month afterwards. But a couple of weeks after, 3 weeks after, we could see 3 large X-class flares. They're going to kick off behind us because at that time, that's going to be off the eastern limb because the black star will be behind us at that time. So if there's a chance for a kill shot, then those events should come behind us. The best opportunity for a kill shot comes on this cycle around December the 1st. That is just after the near side, the backside alignment quake event, and then when the magnetic portal connections begin to diverge on the backside of the sun. Best time for a kill shot on this cycle, my opinion. But it's near the alignments, near side or backside, that you have a chance for these X-class flares. Then there is, before I go to the survival section, down here, go to the survival section, and there is a really good article for whenever the crap hits the fan. Here's the economy, right here. What to do if there is a nuclear disaster is imminent. And there's you can download this. I downloaded it and I uploaded it to the Dropbox folder. So at the bottom of this, you're going to see that there's a link here. And this is a very good article. Of course, there's things you have to add to it. They're not considering Black Star threats. But this is how you continue reading. And this is the Dropbox folder link. So the Natural Disaster Survival Guide. It's a good thing to go through for those of you that are waking up and you need to be survival oriented. Survivalists will be kings in the period that's coming. Those that are survivalists will be able to make plans to neutralize to make contingencies to neutralize the threats. Those that don't do anything, you're going to be living hand to mouth. It's going to be Mad Max out there, and your chances of survival go way, way, way down. So I just want to point that out to you. There's lots of good survival information on here. 13 myths and facts about canned foods. Half the people that die after the geological pole shift, after these events, are going to die from eating bad food and drinking bad water. So get yourself educated. Know how to rebuild your immune system. Know how to rebuild the stomach flora in your digestive tract. That happens to so many people, children particularly, after the fact, because they eat bad food, they drink bad water, and then they cannot rebuild their body in time, and they're gone. They're just gone before you know it, and then your morale is going down in your survival group. It's usually the children first, and then everybody else follows. You need strong leadership, really, really strong leadership for your survival group, and I recommend you guys be heading in that direction. For those that are more physically oriented, if you're spiritually oriented, there's nothing to do at all. Because, according to Scripture, our rapture coincides with the start of the day of the Lord that comes like a thief in the night, and that's how I interpret the Scriptures. So for me, it's prepared spiritually and be prepared physically, both of that. So as always, the older radio shows, or the recent radio shows, they appear right here. There will be a 5-5 that appears here right after the radio show. That'll be today's radio show. It starts at 4 o'clock, 4 to 5, freedomslips.com. And recent radio shows, you can just go back in time. They're an hour each. And thank you guys for putting up with me in my Black Star Update report. And remember, you can subscribe at terlo3.com. Thanks again. I'll see you guys next time on the Black Star Update report. If something big does happen during the week, then maybe I'll break in there and make a update video. See you guys next time. Thank you for your support.